You're listening to the Live Life Longer show with Dan Voss, where we discuss longevity, anti-aging practices, biohacking, having more energy, and living a happier, healthier life. Before we begin, I'd like to ask you, if you're enjoying this podcast, please share it with your friends and your family. You can text them the link to the podcast or the YouTube channel. And if you know of someone that you think would enjoy learning more about health, longevity, and maximizing the potential of our health and our lives, I would greatly appreciate you sharing it with them. Today's episode is a little different than the traditional format of interviewing someone in the health space because I'd like to share with you today the most influential experience I had last year. This is the first episode of 2021 for me, and while I like to set goals for the new year, I also like to reflect on the past year on what went right, what went wrong, and how I can improve. So I'd like to discuss today something you've probably heard me talk about quite a bit on this podcast, and that's the Wim Hof Method. Back in September of 2020, I attended my first Wim Hof Method workshop, and I'm telling you right now, it was definitely the most important moment of 2020 for me, and possibly one of the most important, impactful, and influential experiences of my life. I drove to Willowsby, Ohio, which is just outside of Cleveland. It was about a 6-hour drive from Chicago, and there were about 10 people in this class. And for those of you that have experienced the Wim Hof Method, have practiced it before, you probably know that it consists of 3 things, which is breathing, mindset, and cold exposure. And in this case, we did ice baths. So I'd like to share with you everything that went on during the Wim Hof Method workshop and the experiences that I had, and see if it's something that you might be interested in. The beginning of the workshop, we started with the mindset and really setting the framework for the method and some of the science behind it, because there's a lot there that's going on. So it was a really neat thing to start off with the science behind the method and what the mindset of the entire Wim Hof Method is all about. So then once we completed the mindset portion of it and kind of some of the meditative aspect of the practice, we then went into the breathing, the breath work. While we did the breath work, we had some sounds being played on the speakers. They were like drum sounds, and also some crystal singing bowl sounds. And I know a lot of this sounds kind of hippy dippy, but I think it added to the experience so that when you were breathing, you had these sounds happening at the same time that kind of helped you get into sync. And I think it just added that much more to the experience. So those of you that know what the Wim Hof breathing is all about, you know that there's 30 deep breaths for one session. So you basically take 30 deep breaths. You have an inhale and an exhale. You're doing diaphragm breathing, so you're breathing into your belly, you're filling up your belly, and then you're basically, just think of it as a wave. You want that breath to go up into your chest and then almost over your head and then back out through your mouth. So you're doing that 30 times, the deepest breath you can possibly have. Inhale, exhale. You're doing that 30 times, and then you hold your breath for as long as you can. And since we were doing this in a group setting, I think we did about a minute and a half to 2 minutes of breath hold. But if you're doing this on your own, you can really practice it and hold your breath as long as you can. And then that completes one session. So what we did, we did this for 5 rounds, which is more than I've ever done. The most I've ever done was 3 rounds. And I think by doing 2 additional rounds, it made the experience that much deeper and that much more impactful. And honestly, if I look back at the entire experience, I would say that this was the best high that I've ever had. It was a natural high. But I've never felt so good, honestly. And the best way to explain what was happening was my whole body was tingling, and my lungs and the muscles around my ribs felt like they were burning, like they were on fire, but in a really good way, like in a natural, good way. And then I remember after the breath work, the 5 sessions of breathing, and you open your eyes and you sit up and you kind of wake up. I don't know what made me say it out loud. It was just the first thought that came to mind, but I said, that was effing awesome. And again, it was just the first thought that came to mind. I didn't even realize that I said it out loud. I think I was, because I felt that natural high and I was just like out of it, I just blurted that out. And the whole room then went into, up in laughter. And I think the reason why was because a lot of the other people in the group were probably experiencing something similar of how awesome it was. And for somebody to just say that out loud when the whole room was quiet, I guess everyone thought it was funny. And then from there, we just went around the room, and anybody that had a really cool experience was able to share that. So at that point, everyone already knew I had an awesome experience. But another guy was talking about how he was seeing colors. He was seeing really bright purples and greens during the breathing exercise. And I know for those that are listening right now that have never done anything like this before, you're probably listening and thinking like, this is just wacky. And I know it sounds that way, but when you give this a try, you're going to experience something on your own. And I think you'll understand what I'm talking about. So then from there, we went into the cold exposure where we did the ice baths, and they had a local drummer. I'm not sure what kind of drums they are. It was kind of just like the traditional tribal drum with like the beat. He was there to play while we were in the ice bath, which has added a huge adrenaline rush. And then they had a woman there who was a friend of the instructor who does a lot of like yoga practices. And she was the one that was doing the crystal bowl sounds while we were doing the breath work. Well, she was doing like humming and singing while we were in the ice bath. And that just added just a really cool experience. It definitely allowed us to get really focused. And then again, with the drums, it was just like a huge adrenaline rush. And then in terms of how long you stay in the ice, the cold water, a lot of people were asking like, well, how long do you stay in the ice bath? We only did 2 minutes, which doesn't sound like a long time. I actually thought originally that it was supposed to be like 5 minutes. But then when I got there, the instructor said, you really only need 2 minutes to get the impact, the benefits from the cold exposure. And really, if you get past like 5-10 minutes, you're getting into some dangerous territory. You can be at risk of hypothermia. So I learned that day, that was something new I learned. All you need is about 2 minutes of the cold water or ice bath exposure to get those benefits. And then afterwards, when I stepped out of the ice bath, I'm not lying to you right now, it was like the happiest I've ever felt. It was the most relaxed and peaceful I've felt in a long time. And I think it was just from the experience of doing everything. That's why there's the 3 components, right? It's the mindset, you're getting focused, you're getting into almost like a meditative element mindset. And when you get there, you have no worries, you have no stress, you're just focused on the present moment. And then that coupled with the breath work and what you're doing for your body with pumping as much oxygen as you possibly can into your body. And then that combined with the cold exposure, it's just this beautiful combination of things that really kind of awakens you. And I'm just super happy I was able to experience that. Even afterwards, when everything was said and done and everyone was kind of leaving, I was in the parking lot about to get into my car, and another guy that was in our group was walking out near me. His car was parked near me. His name was Al, and Al came over to my car and he asked how I was feeling. And I told him I felt so happy and full of energy, and really peaceful. And he said, he felt the same way, and that he normally has lower back pain. But after doing the breath work and especially the cold exposure, the ice bath, that any pain he had was gone, which a lot of other people experience the same thing. Any kind of ailments or pain, back pain, neck pain, stuff like that kind of just went away. And then from there, I drove home, and I drove that whole ride home. I was just full of energy. I was probably driving faster than I should have been. But it was just because I was full of energy. I felt like I was on fire, like in a really good way. And it was just super excited and full of energy. And when I did get home, I couldn't fall asleep. This was at nighttime now, but in a good way. Like, it's not like you have a hard time falling asleep if you've had too much caffeine or if you have something on your mind, you're just kind of tossing and turning. That's not what this was like. I just felt so alert and alive. And it was hard to fall asleep because I was so excited. And then when I finally did fall asleep, I had the best night of sleep that I've had in several months, which is really not that surprising. If you look at some of the benefits, there's really just like a laundry list of benefits when it comes to doing the Wim Hof method. You can, look at, improved energy or improved mental clarity, improved mood. It's known to improve your sex life, to have better sex, to have better sleep. There's just a long list of benefits that you get from this. And that doesn't even go into some of the actual like science of, with the breath work, you're pumping your cells with oxygen, and you're just enhancing your mitochondria. That's why you have more energy. But anyhow, this is just kind of like some surface level stuff of what you'll likely experience if you practice this. And it's definitely something I'm looking into attending more moving forward. I plan on doing a workshop at least once a quarter. The one I attended was a beginner level workshop. They also have advanced workshops. So that's somebody that's already been to like the beginner level workshop. You can go to an advanced one. And that's something I'm definitely going to be doing at least 4 times a year, because I had that much fun with it. I got that much from it. And like I said earlier, it was the most impactful thing I did in 2020. So why not incorporate that into my life on a regular basis? And I'm also going to be looking into becoming a certified instructor, a Wim Hof Method instructor, which requires a lot of hours of training. You have to do online training. There's a few different segments there, several hours worth. And then I think that last kind of step is to do an in-person, like 2 or 3 day workshop. So it is an extensive kind of process, but I think it's something that'll be worth it and something that I can implement into my life and into my business. And truthfully, I think, if you can't tell by now how excited I am about it, I think it's something that everyone should be doing. I even turned to someone during the workshop. We were sitting there and, while we were having a break, and this was right after the breath work when we did the 5 rounds of breathing, and I blurted out how effing awesome it was. And we had a few minutes of just a chat, and I told the guy, I asked him, can you imagine if everyone did this, how better of a world we'd be living in? Everyone would be happier and more at peace and kinder and full of energy and just like feeling good. And imagine if everybody in the world did this and felt that way, how much better we'd be treating each other and how less stress we would have. I know in today's world, that seems to be a big thing. People stressed and anxious about a lot of things. So if we could eliminate that, the way I look at it is this is just a tool that we can all have in our tool belt. And I also think, athletes should be doing this. For those that aren't already, athletes should definitely be doing this to improve their performance. And in fact, I had Kelly Starrett on my podcast about 6 or 7 months ago. Kelly is a professional coach and trainer. He has a background in physical therapy, but he trains some of the best athletes in the world. He's training Olympic athletes, Tour de France athletes, NFL players, MLB, NBA. I mean, literally the best athletes in the world. And we started talking about the Wim Hof Method towards the end of that interview with Kelly. And he said that he is now incorporating it into his work with his Tour de France athletes. So that just goes to show you that this stuff really works. And the science is there. You can read up on it. I have all kinds of paperwork that I took home that day after the workshop. There's a ton of science that it's been around for a very, very long time, but now they're looking into it all and realizing that what Wim Hof is doing with this method, it's backed up by science. And I think once you experience it for yourself, I think you'll become as obsessed and passionate about it as I am. So that's all I have for today. I just wanted to share with you my experience attending my first Wim Hof Method workshop and how much I got out of it, how incredible of an experience it was, and really was the best thing that happened to me in 2020. Even though there was not a lot of good things in 2020, this was definitely a really good thing and something I'm going to be implementing into my life on a regular basis moving forward. Thank you so much for listening to this. I wish you all a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year.